It began with a signal. Deep beneath the sands of Saqqara, a team of geologists testing ground-penetrating radar detected a frequency unlike any they'd seen before. Dr. Nolia Zayed, a leading Egyptologist with a knack for chasing the inexplicable, was brought in to investigate. "This can't be natural," murmured Nolia as she reviewed the radar images. Beneath layers of limestone and sand lay an unusual pattern, a perfect hexagon that emitted faint electromagnetic waves. "No way, this is a geological formation." The excavation began cautiously, but within days, the team uncovered a strange stone chamber. Its walls shimmered faintly, and as the last layer of sand was brushed away, a set of glowing hieroglyphs came into view. Unlike the stylized carvings of other tombs, these glyphs were sharp and geometric, etched with surgical precision. They pulsed faintly, as if alive. In the center of the chamber lay a metallic object, no larger than a human hand, humming softly. "What is it?" Omar, one of her assistants, asked, his voice barely a whisper. "It's not a relic," Nolia said, her voice trembling. "It's something else." When Nolia reached for the artifact, the air grew electric. A low hum built in the room, and the hieroglyphs flared brighter. Symbols shifted and rearranged themselves on the walls, projecting patterns of light across the chamber. Back at the surface, the team's satellite equipment exploded in a cascade of sparks, severing their connection to the outside world. "Shut it down," someone shouted, but the energy was beyond anyone's control. Then, as quickly as it began, the light faded. The chamber fell silent, leaving behind an eerie stillness. Nolia clutched the artifact, her heart pounding, unaware that her actions had triggered a cascade of events that would change the world. News of the find leaked within days, sparking global interest. Scientists and scholars debated the artifact's origins, while governments and private corporations quietly maneuvered to seize control of the discovery. Nolia, still reeling from the chamber's activation, found herself thrust into the center of the storm. "It's not a weapon," Nolia argued during an emergency meeting with Egypt's Antiquities Authority. "At least, not in the way you think. These symbols, they're instructions. Schematics, maybe. We're looking at advanced technology disguised as magic." The artifact, now housed in a heavily guarded laboratory, was studied around the clock. The glowing hieroglyphs responded to certain inputs, reshaping themselves to form what appeared to be equations. When one sequence was completed, a small section of the artifact detached and hovered midair, defying gravity. "It's like a puzzle," Nolia said, watching the floating fragment spin slowly. "Each piece unlocks something new, but we're missing parts of the code." The revelation set off a global race. Records suggested similar symbols existed in other ancient sites. The Great Pyramid of Giza, Karnak Temple, and even remote locations as far as Mesoamerica. Teams were dispatched to retrieve them, but the competition quickly turned hostile. Victor Lang, a tech magnate obsessed with ancient artifacts, emerged as a key player. Using his wealth and influence, Lang assembled his own team of mercenaries and researchers, aiming to monopolize the technology. "This isn't just history," Lang declared in an interview. "This is the blueprint to reshape reality. And whoever controls it controls the future." Meanwhile, Nolia began to suspect that activating the artifact had awakened something. Strange phenomena were reported near ancient sites: localized storms, disruptions in gravity, and flickering distortions in the air. "Whatever this is," Nolia said to Omar during a late-night study session, "it's not just technology. It's alive in some way. And I'm not sure we're ready for it." The global race escalated into chaos as competing factions clashed over control of the symbols. At Karnak, an explosion rocked the site as Lang's mercenaries tried to seize a fragment from a government team. In the Yucatan, an ancient Mayan temple collapsed under mysterious circumstances, burying a group of researchers alive. Amid the turmoil, Nolia made a breakthrough. By cross-referencing the hieroglyphs with ancient texts, she deciphered their purpose. The symbols were part of a vast network designed to stabilize and manipulate the fabric of reality. The fragments weren't just pieces of technology, they were keys to unlocking a dormant system hidden within the earth. But there was a catch. Activating the full system required precise synchronization of all fragments, and any mistake could destabilize reality itself. This isn't a race, Nolia pleaded during an emergency UN meeting. If we misuse this, it could tear the world apart. Her warnings fell on deaf ears. Lang, now in possession of most of the fragments, initiated the system's activation from a private facility in the Nevada desert. Streams of light erupted from the fragments, connecting in a web of energy that rippled across the globe. Ancient sites began to glow, their symbols reactivating. At first, the effects were wondrous. Crops grew instantly in arid regions. Gravity shifted, allowing objects to float. But the system quickly became unstable. Earthquakes shook cities, and the sky flickered as if reality itself was cracking. Realizing the danger, Nolia and her team infiltrated Lang's facility, determined to shut down the system. In a climactic confrontation, Nolia used her understanding of the symbols to reverse the activation process. "You can't stop progress," Lang shouted as Nolia input the final sequence. "This is humanity's destiny." "No," Nolia replied, her voice steady. "This is hubris." The system deactivated with a deafening roar, the energy collapsing inward. The fragments dissolved into light, leaving behind only silence. The world was saved, but the cost was high. In the aftermath, Nolia vowed to protect what remained of the knowledge. The symbols were too powerful to be used recklessly, and humanity wasn't ready for the responsibility they entailed. As she sealed away the last of the fragments, Nolia whispered a prayer to the ancients. "May we one day be worthy of your gifts." Months after the Nevada incident, the world was still grappling with the aftershocks, both literal and metaphorical. Across the globe, strange phenomena persisted in areas where the fragments had briefly activated. Crops in previously barren lands continued to thrive, and gravity anomalies became tourist attractions. Yet, for those who had witnessed the system's potential firsthand, the dangers were all too clear. Dr. Nolia Zayed became a reluctant public figure, hailed as both a savior and a destroyer. Governments and corporations clamored for access to her knowledge, but she remained steadfast in her decision to safeguard the remaining fragments and what little data she had collected. "You're sitting on the greatest discovery in human history," a frustrated UN delegate shouted during a global summit. "You can't just bury it." "I'm not burying it," Nolia replied, her voice firm but tired. "I'm protecting humanity from itself. We're not ready to wield this kind of power responsibly." Despite her resolve, cracks began to form in the fragile unity she had fought to maintain. Rogue organizations sought remnants of the technology, scouring ancient sites for even the smallest trace of Heka's system. In response, Nolia formed a covert network of researchers and archeologists, nicknamed the Keepers, to monitor and safeguard any remaining artifacts. 2 years later, Nolia was called to a remote site in the Australian outback. Local miners had stumbled upon a hidden chamber deep beneath a mountain range. The symbols on the walls were familiar, an extension of the same ancient system she had worked to dismantle. But something was different this time. The chamber wasn't inert. It was active. As Nolia and her team approached the site, the air grew heavy, vibrating with energy. Lights flickered, and the ground pulsed faintly beneath their feet. When they entered the chamber, they found a central console, glowing with a bright, steady light. Unlike the fragments they had encountered before, this device seemed intact, complete. "This is the heart of the system," Nolia whispered, awe and dread mixing in her voice. "It's not just a piece. It's the core." Before she could study it further, a sharp voice echoed through the chamber. Victor Lang emerged from the shadows, flanked by armed guards. "Did you really think you could keep this hidden forever, Dr. Zayed?" Lang sneered. His face was thinner, more worn than the last time they had met, but his eyes still burned with ambition. "You might have destroyed the fragments, but this is the crown jewel." "You don't understand what you're dealing with, Lang," Nolia said, stepping between him and the console. "This isn't just technology. It's connected to something far beyond our comprehension." Lang smirked. "I understand more than you think." And I intend to finish what you started. Before Nolia could react, Lang activated the console. The chamber filled with a deafening hum as beams of light shot upward, piercing through the earth and into the sky. The entire structure trembled, and outside, the horizon warped and bent unnaturally. The activation of the core set off a chain reaction across the planet. Ancient sites that had been dormant for millennia began to awaken, emitting pulses of energy that disrupted the fabric of reality. Time itself seemed to unravel in certain areas, creating zones where the past, present, and future collided. Nolia's team worked frantically to counteract the system. Using her extensive research, she deduced that the core could be shut down, but it would require inputting the original glyphic code, a code that had been scattered and incomplete since the fragments were destroyed. "We'll never find it all in time," Omar said, his voice shaking as they watched a massive storm form overhead, lightning crackling in unnatural colors. "We don't need it all," Nolia replied, her mind racing. "We just need the central sequence, the glyphs we found in Saqqara. I can reprogram the core to stabilize the system instead of destroying it." As Lang's mercenaries clashed with Nolia's team, she worked furiously to input the glyphs. The console resisted, sparking violently as she entered each sequence. The chamber shook, and cracks spread along the walls. "You'll kill us all," Lang shouted, trying to wrestle control of the console. "No," Nolia said, shoving him aside. "I'm saving us." With the final glyph entered, the console emitted a blinding flash. The energy reversed course, pulling back into the core. The chamber fell silent, and outside, the storms dissipated. The ancient sites around the globe went dark once more. Lang, battered and defeated, stared at Nolia with a mix of anger and admiration. "You could have ruled the world." "I'd rather save it," she replied, turning away. In the months that followed, Nolia and her network worked quietly to dismantle what remained of Heka's system. The core was sealed deep beneath the earth, protected by layers of technology and ancient wards designed to prevent its activation. The events left an indelible mark on humanity. While the world returned to a semblance of normalcy, whispers of Heka's hardware persisted, stories of a technology that could bend reality, hidden just out of reach. Nolia returned to Saqqara one last time, standing in the very chamber where it had all begun. As she gazed at the faded glyphs on the walls, she felt a deep sense of both loss and hope. "We weren't ready," she whispered, tracing her fingers over the ancient carvings. "But maybe someday we will be." With that, she left the chamber, sealing it behind her. The knowledge of Heka's hardware was buried, but its legacy endured, waiting for a future where humanity might prove itself worthy of wielding the power of the ancients. 10 years passed. The world moved on, yet the legacy of Heka's hardware lingered in unexpected ways. Despite Nolia's efforts to dismantle the system, whispers of its existence spread among secretive circles. Rogue scientists, treasure hunters, and conspirators delved into ancient texts and forbidden sites, hoping to unearth remnants of the lost technology. Nolia, now living in quiet anonymity under a new identity, watched from the sidelines as rumors of Heka's hardware grew. She had retired from active archaeology and lived in a small village on the Nile, far removed from the politics and chaos of the modern world. But peace was fleeting. One evening, as she prepared tea in her modest home, there was a knock at her door. Opening it cautiously, she found Omar standing there, a look of urgency in his eyes. "They found another site," he said without preamble. "This one's different." Nolia felt a chill creep down her spine. "Where?" "Antarctica," he replied. "Beneath the ice." The Antarctic dig site was like nothing Nolia had ever seen. Hidden under miles of ice was a massive structure, circular in design, with faintly glowing lines radiating outward like spokes on a wheel. The team that discovered it had unearthed what appeared to be a control room, its walls inscribed with the same glyphic patterns Nolia had studied years ago. "It's older than anything we've seen," said Dr. Elena Morales, a glaciologist who led the expedition. "Carbon dating suggests it predates the pyramids by tens of thousands of years." As Nolia examined the glyphs, a sense of foreboding washed over her. The symbols were similar to those in Saqqara but far more complex, almost fractal in design. They spoke of an integrated system, one that spanned the globe, and possibly beyond. "This isn't a fragment," she said aloud, her voice tinged with dread. "This is the source." The discovery reignited global interest in Heka's hardware, drawing the attention of powerful entities. Victor Lang, thought to have disappeared after the Nevada incident, resurfaced, claiming to have critical knowledge about activating the Antarctic structure. "We don't need to fear it," Lang declared in a broadcast. "We need to embrace it. This is humanity's next step." Despite her misgivings, Nolia was drawn into a reluctant partnership with Lang. She couldn't let him activate the structure without understanding the risks. The Antarctic structure was far more advanced than anything Nolia had encountered. Its activation required a complex sequence of glyphs, which Lang claimed to have reconstructed. As he worked, the glyphs on the walls began to glow, and the entire facility hummed with energy. Nolia stood by, torn between stopping Lang and uncovering the truth about the system. "You're gambling with forces you don't understand," she warned. Lang smirked. "Isn't that what discovery is about?" When the final glyph was entered, the structure came to life. Energy beams shot into the sky, forming a lattice of light that encircled the planet. Ancient sites worldwide began to resonate, their dormant systems awakening in unison. But something went wrong. The lattice began to destabilize, creating tears in reality itself. Gravity fluctuated wildly, time bent and twisted, and the very fabric of existence seemed to unravel. "We have to shut it down," Nolia shouted, racing to the console. "It's too much." Lang hesitated, his face pale as he realized the scope of the disaster he had unleashed. Together, they worked to reverse the sequence, but the system resisted. "It's fighting back," Lang said, panic in his voice. "It's not a machine," Nolia replied. "It's alive." Drawing on her years of research, Nolia entered a manual override, bypassing the activation sequence and stabilizing the energy flow. With a final surge of light, the system powered down, and the Antarctic structure fell silent. In the aftermath, Nolia and Lang sat in the now darkened control room, the air thick with tension. "It's not just technology," Nolia said quietly. "It's a living network. The ancients didn't create it, they discovered it, just like us. And they tried to warn us." Lang nodded, his arrogance finally replaced with humility. "We came so close to destroying everything." As they prepared to leave, Nolia noticed one glyph still glowing faintly on the wall. It wasn't a warning or a directive, it was a message. It read, "Protect, learn, evolve." Nolia realized that the ancients had left behind not just a system but a challenge. It was a test of humanity's ability to grow, to learn, and to wield power responsibly. Returning to her quiet life, Nolia carried with her the weight of what she had seen. She knew the knowledge of Heka's hardware couldn't be destroyed, but it could be safeguarded. She entrusted her findings to the keepers, ensuring that the system's secrets would remain hidden until humanity was truly ready. In the end, Heka's hardware wasn't just a relic of the past. It was a mirror, reflecting humanity's potential, and its peril. The ancient system lay dormant once more, waiting for a future where its message of balance and understanding could be fully embraced. And so, beneath the sands, the ice, and the forgotten corners of the earth, the symbols remained, silently watching, silently waiting. 5 years passed, and the world seemed to settle back into uneasy calm. Yet, deep within the icy depths of Antarctica, the faint glow of the last glyph pulsed intermittently, as though responding to a silent call. Despite Nolia's best efforts to secure the knowledge of Heka's hardware, traces of its power still lingered in forgotten places, waiting for those desperate, or reckless, enough to seek them. One such seeker was Lieutenant Adira Cole, a rogue operative for a private military group. Guided by intercepted fragments of Nolia's research and rumors of Lang's exploits, Adira led an expedition back to the Antarctic site. Her goal wasn't discovery, it was domination. Nolia, now in her mid-40s and mentoring a new generation of archaeologists, received word of the unauthorized excavation through the Keeper's covert network. Alarmed, she quickly assembled a team to intervene, knowing full well the dangers of reactivating the ancient structure. They won't stop until they unlock the system's full potential, Nolia told Omar, who had become her closest confidant. And if they succeed, it'll make Lang's attempt look like a child's experiment. Their plan was simple: infiltrate the site, assess the damage, and shut down any reactivation attempts. But when they arrived, they discovered something unexpected. The glyphs were already glowing, and the air hummed with the unmistakable energy of a partially activated system. Adira had triggered something far older and more complex than even Nolia had anticipated. The deeper Nolia and her team ventured into the structure, the more apparent it became that the system was responding to Adira's tampering in an entirely new way. Glyphs they had never seen before lit up, forming intricate patterns that seemed to shift and reconfigure themselves in real time. "It's learning," Omar whispered, his voice filled with awe. "It's adapting to them." Adira's team had made it to the core chamber, where a colossal spherical device floated above a dais of glowing symbols. Unlike the fragments Nolia had encountered before, this was unmistakably the nexus of the entire system. The device pulsed rhythmically, as though it had a heartbeat. Nolia approached cautiously, her every instinct screaming danger. The system wasn't just reactivating, it was communicating. "Dr. Zayed," Adira called, her voice echoing through the chamber. She stood near the core, a smug smile on her face. "You're just in time to witness history. Or maybe, rewrite it. You don't know what you're doing." Nolia shouted. "This isn't a weapon. It's something far beyond our understanding." Adira raised an eyebrow, unfazed. "And that's exactly why it belongs to us." Before Nolia could respond, the core flared to life. Beams of energy shot outward, forming a massive holographic projection that enveloped the entire chamber. The projection showed not just Earth, but a vast network of interconnected planets and stars. "It's not just a system," Nolia murmured, her voice trembling. "It's a map. A gateway." The hologram shifted, showing scenes of ancient civilizations, Egyptian, Mayan, Mesopotamian, all interacting with the system in ways that defied comprehension. Each civilization had left behind traces of their understanding, yet none had unlocked its full potential. The system was waiting for something, and Nolia finally understood what. "It's not a tool," she said, stepping closer to the core. "It's a test. A challenge to prove our worthiness." Adira scoffed. "Worthiness? That's just mythology. Power is the only thing that matters." The system seemed to respond to their words, the glyphs shifting to form new patterns. A deep, resonant voice echoed through the chamber, not in any language they knew, but in a way they all understood. Balance must be restored. The core pulsed violently, and the chamber trembled. Nolia realized the system was preparing to execute a judgment, one that could either stabilize the world or tear it apart. "We have to stop it," Omar shouted. "No," Nolia said, her mind racing. "We have to prove we're ready." She approached the core and began inputting sequences from memory, using everything she had learned about the glyphs over the years. The system resisted at first, its energy sparking dangerously, but as she continued, the patterns began to align. Adira, seeing her control slipping away, drew her weapon. "Step away, Zayed. Now." Nolia didn't flinch. "If you stop me, we all die." The system's energy reached a fever pitch as Nolia completed the final sequence. The core stopped pulsing and emitted a soft, steady glow. The hologram shifted one last time, displaying a single glyph, a symbol of unity. The system spoke again. "You are not yet ready. But you may learn." With that, the core deactivated, its energy dissipating into the chamber walls. The structure fell silent once more, leaving Nolia and her team standing in the aftermath of what could have been a cataclysm. Adira, defeated but defiant, lowered her weapon. "This isn't over," she said, retreating with her team. Nolia watched her go, exhaustion and relief washing over her. She knew Adira was right. The struggle for control over Heka's hardware would continue. But for now, the system was safe. Back in her quiet village, Nolia reflected on the events in Antarctica. The system's message was clear: humanity wasn't ready, but the potential for growth remained. It was both a warning and a promise. The Keepers, now a global network of guardians and scholars, redoubled their efforts to protect and study the ancient knowledge. Nolia became their leader, ensuring the secrets of Heka's hardware would be preserved for a future where humanity could rise to the challenge. And so, the symbols of Heka's hardware lay dormant once more, waiting for the day when humanity might finally prove itself worthy of wielding the power to shape reality. Until then, the ancient system watched silently, its secrets hidden beneath the sands, the ice, and the stars.